So this is Judge Alan Bruce Jones. Judge Alan Bruce Jones. This is the judge that gave Rogel a 110-year prison sentence because he doesn't realize that you're not allowed to impose cruel and unusual punishments in America and in Colorado, according to the Bill of Rights of Colorado. I want to say Section 28, 21, and 20. Yeah, check out Article 2, Section 20, 21, and 28. But no cruel or unusual punishments. That's Article 2, Section 20. It's also the 8th Amendment to the US Constitution. So that's the guy that went ahead and imposed a 110-year prison sentence, and he had to. He had no choice. Why? Because this district attorney, Alexis King, said that, put 42 counts on him, and the jury said 27 of them were correct. And so the judge said, well, I got to impose the minimum on these 27 counts. So Alexis King is the DA that put 42 charges on Rogel Aguilera Medeiros. Rogel. Good old Rogel. So Rogel, unlike Kim Potter, he actually feels contrition. He feels bad for what has happened. He's never hurt anybody. He didn't mean to hurt people that day. This is his first crime, right? So throwing the entire library at him doesn't make any goddamn sense. Johnny Hurley was straight up murdered by Kraig Brownlow, and Alexis King didn't do shit about that. Didn't even charge the guy. So when they say that their hands are tied to Colorado law, that's bullshit, because you can't impose cruel and unusual punishments. That's Colorado law. You can't impose cruel and unusual punishments. You know what's real unusual? Imposing a 110-year sentence. Do people even live to be 110 years? My God, why not to impose 157 years? And then you're telling me if the judge went and said, you know what, 110 years, that's a little too much. I'm just going to impose a 100-year sentence. Who's going to tell that judge that he wasn't supposed to do it? The Supreme Court? Some prosecutor? Some citizen? Some cop? Another judge? Nobody's going to tell him that, reducing the sentence from 110 years to 100 years. Nobody would have said shit to that. One of the victims, they said to throw the book at him and give him 20 years. So he thought he was being cruel, with 20 years. But this judge imposes a cruel and unusual sentence of 110 years and acts like he didn't even do it. Acts like his hands were tied. His hands were tied. He's handcuffed to this decision. He's got to. And so Rogel, feels bad. He feels bad, which is better than what I could say for Kim Potter. That's negligent homicide, right? She thought it was a taser, but it was a gun, and she shot and killed dude. So you can straight up and let's not get into all the hypocrisy. Let's just talk about the facts. Just the facts, ma'am. Just the facts. So what are the facts? The facts are, if Rogel would have went around just killing people, if he would have went around just stabbing and killing people, he would have got a lesser sentence. Rogel Aguilera Medeiros, he's a man that has no prior criminal record. He went to work to feed his family. The brakes in his truck went out. It was a terrible accident. And he's going to get 110 years for the first crime he's ever committed, a crime that wasn't even intentional. Meanwhile, the person that murdered Johnny Hurley, Kraig Brownlow, gets to walk around scot-free because Alexis King says, well, her hands weren't tied. She's not handcuffed to the law. She could go ahead and pick the winners and losers of society. And if you're a cop in her district that shoots and kills a man, she'll cover it up for you. Don't you worry. But if you're a Cuban immigrant and you're 23 years old and you're young and you're not rich and you don't have a bunch of attorneys and shit, well, fuck, her hands are tied. She's got to ruin your fucking life. She has to. James Holmes, he only got life in prison. James Holmes killed 12 people. And after being convicted of 150 counts of crime. So James Holmes got, He just got life in sentence. But this Rogel, yeah, thank goodness, motherfucking Alexis King. Thank God you got Rogel off the streets. Rogel wasn't doing shit to me. This doesn't make my life any better. This doesn't make the community a more peaceful place. Rogel gets 110 years, but the person that killed Johnny Hurley, the good Samaritan that saved the day, that killed an active shooter and saved everybody that day, including the cops, that guy didn't even get a ticket. He don't even get a $50 fine. And then he gets 110 years. What's the discrepancy? And then what about the truck company? Nobody's talking about the truck company. The brakes go bad. They hired some inexperienced person. I mean, that's a corporation. There's a civil lawsuit. Could have got, should have gone after the big bucks instead of, poor immigrant. Yeah, you can ruin his life. You could bankrupt him, but then all this judge and Alexis King, like, he did a bad thing and he should pay for it. But what they just did is turned him into a victim. 5 million people on a petition can't be wrong. Kim Kardashian cannot be wrong. The company that he worked for had a ton of violations. His truck wasn't new. They hired an inexperienced person and put him into a truck that had bad brakes. So Colorado clearly needs to fix our mandatory minimum laws. We need to have a constitutional convention because our Constitution's got over 200 pages, and then the CRS is 44 titles, which equals 20,000, more than 20,000 laws. We need a simplified, law for the layman. The layman needs to be need to understand what the hell, and it needs to be the same. It needs to be the. Colorado needs to fix the sham judge retention elections. We need to maintain the same standards for everybody. Judges need to add constitutional freedoms into their understanding of the law. When he said he was bound by the law, he's actually bound by the law to not impose an unusual and cruel sentence. He's bound by Colorado's section, 20 or 21, right? He's bound by Colorado Article 2, Section 20. This is Colorado's Bill of Rights. No cruel and unusual punishments. Also, the 8th Amendment. So you got American Constitution, you got the Colorado Constitution saying you cannot hand down cruel and unusual punishments, motherfucker. But who enforces the rights and freedoms? You enforce the criminal code and let the ACLU enforce the rights and freedoms of people. And the ACLU is on this case. The ACLU has shown that they are on the side of Rogel. The juries, I think we should let juries impose sentences that they believe to be fair. They're the ones that said that the person is guilty of this, and that. One juror said that they wouldn't have convicted him of 27 crimes, like, he did the 27 crimes, but they didn't realize that the sentence was going to be so damn harsh. So if they would have seen that entire package, that entire equation, is he guilty or not guilty? And then what is the sentence going to be? So, okay, I think he did the thing that you're saying that he did, but I don't think that you should do the things, that's tied to that. So, limit charges to a reasonable amount. When you have 42 charges, that's stacking the deck. That's cheating. Even if he beat 41 charges and they got him with vehicular manslaughter, you know what? Vehicular manslaughter, not a crime of violence in Colorado. Vehicular manslaughter is not a crime of violence. So that's what Colorado needs to do. The crash killed Miguel Angel Lamas Arellana. William Bailey, he's 24. Miguel's 24. William Bailey, 67. Doyle Harrison, 61. And Stanley Politano, 69. So, justice is eye for an eye, so I think he should get some punishment. But it being an accident, what are we going to execute him? What are we going to do? Like, it was an accident. Shit fucking happens, man. Shit fucking happens. And so, like I said, punish him. But don't become the goddamn criminal motherfuckers yourselves because you're What, you don't know right from wrong? You have no conscience? Alexis King, she said that Rogel Aguilera Medeiros didn't accept efforts to negotiate a plea deal and that the convictions recognized the harm caused to the victims of the crash. So, good old Alexis King. What's Alexis King saying? She's sitting there saying that Rogel didn't accept any of the plea, negotiations. Did you offer anything fair, you fucking prick? Didn't accept efforts to negotiate a plea deal. You're saying he didn't want to negotiate a plea deal? The fuck if he didn't. He wanted to negotiate a plea deal, but you came at him with some dumb shit and he said no to it because the ACLU of Colorado has condemned the sentence, supports efforts to get the governor to take up the case, said Mark Silverstein, the legal director of the ACLU of Colorado. The District Court A, Alan Bruce Jones, says, I will state that if I had the discretion, it would not be my sentence. But guess what, Alan Bruce Jones? It was your sentence. Apparently, Jones is bound by sentence enhancers that are outlined in Colorado law. There's mandatory minimum penalties for certain crimes, and then there's certain classifications that enhance penalties for violent crimes. So under Colorado law, first-degree assault and attempted first-degree assault are classified as crimes of violence. So if I attempt to assault you, just attempt to, assault you, and if I do it twice, well, then that means you have to serve those sentences consecutively, not concurrently. Concurrently would be together. Consecutively means you stack them on top of one another. So the whole point of mandatory minimums and sentencing enhancers is to take the power away from the judge and give it to the prosecutor. These motherfuckers have too much money and too much power to begin with, so... And I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but vehicular homicide in Colorado, that's not a crime of violence. It's a class 4 felony. So you could run a motherfucker over and kill them, but that's not going to be enhanced as a crime of violence. And it's not the worst felony out there. You could run a motherfucker over and kill him. It's not a class 1, 2, or 3 felony. It's a class 4 felony, which would mean, since it's not a crime of violence and it's a class 4 felony, if you're, accused of vehicular homicide, you are not entitled to a preliminary hearing. So since vehicular homicide, a class 4 felony, and the other lesser charges were not classified as crimes of violence, the judge, Alan Bruce Jones, he had the discretion to run them concurrently, and that's what he did. He could have given them 220 fucking year sentence, everybody. Everybody getting mad at poor Alan Bruce Jones for throwing, this guy, this Cuban immigrant that had an accident in jail for 110 years. He could have thrown him in jail for 220 years. Was he not being merciful? Is Alan Bruce Jones and Alexis King not the most merciful people out here? One of the victims asked the judge to give Rogel 20 years. This isn't for the victims. This is for the system. These motherfuckers been working on this case and filing this motion and that motion. Look how predatory the system is. Day in and day out. How many of these expensive systemites, these goddamn judges and lawyers, worked diligently to get this guy convicted? You could have just showed the damn video, put 3 charges on him. The jury would have convicted him. He had been in jail for 20 years, and nobody would have talked about this damn case. Maybe that was the thing. Maybe Alan Bruce Jones fucked this shit up so royally so he would have a reason to appeal. No, this is cruel and unusual. I'm going to sentence you to how many years? 537 years? Average lifespan's only 76. I don't care. You're going to go to jail for 374 years, motherfucker. I know that Rogel Aguilera Medeiros, Rogel never did me harm. Rogel never made fun of me. Rogel never called me names. Rogel never walked down my neighborhood making me think that he's going to, rob me or do something dumb to me. Rogel looks like a fucking nice guy. He's actually, he feels bad for what had happened. He doesn't want anything to happen to him, but so he was sad. And he was, Rogel is not the dangerous element in Colorado. Put Rogel in jail for 110 years. I do not feel safer in Colorado. There's motherfucking criminals. Alexis King, you know, there's a murderer. Hey, Alexis King, Kraig Brownlow is still running around. He killed somebody, and he didn't even get a single charge. So that's the dangerous element in Colorado. Alan Bruce Jones, these motherfuckers get retention elected. So Alan Bruce Jones was appointed by Governor Bill Ritter in 2010. Motherfuckers had this rich, powerful job for, nearly 12 years. He's going to get retained by the voters in 2014. So he got appointed, had the job for 4 years, and then finally the voters of Colorado put a stamp of approval on him 4 years later. And then 6 years later, he got retained again with 75%. There was like 230,000 votes versus 80,000 votes. So he got 75% of the vote. Alan Bruce Jones must be the most goddamn popular person, most popular judge in Colorado. No, he's not. Retention elections are bullshit. Most people probably don't even know who the fuck he is. The question says, do you want to judge or not? So, people are saying, yeah, go ahead and retain Alan Bruce Jones. But he's the one that felt shackled to his stupid interpretation of Colorado law. He felt shackled to it. How come Alan Bruce Jones doesn't feel shackled to being good and decent to the world? How come Alan Bruce Jones doesn't feel shackled to the truth and justice? How come he doesn't feel shackled to truth and justice? Truth and justice should be your guidepost. Well, the law says I gotta be a piece of shit. The law bounds me to, fuck your life over. What can I do? What can I do? A judge appointment is a lifetime appointment. Please don't be angry with me, Rogel says. Please don't be angry with me. I was working hard for a better future for my family. I never thought about hurting anybody in my life. Rogel Aguilar Medeiros, who immigrated from Cuba to the U.S. at the age of 19, said. So if Alan Bruce Jones would have given him 100 years, I think nobody would have complained. If he would have given him a fair and even-handed sentence, give him 20 years. If Alan Bruce Jones wasn't into torturing his victims, if Alan Bruce Jones wasn't into handing down cruel and unusual punishments against U.S. and Colorado constitutional law, which is mandatory fundamental law, you can't ignore that cruel and unusual statute, Alan Bruce Jones. You can't give cruel and unusual punishments. That's fucking Colorado law, you stupid motherfucker. But if Bruce Jones didn't, if he would have given him a 20-year, 5-year sentence, nobody would have said or done shit. He's shackled. Shut the fuck up. You're shackled to the truth and justice and being good for the American people, motherfucker. If Alan Bruce Jones would have done that, maybe he would have been congratulated on being an even-handed magistrate for the people. So the petition doesn't name the company. I don't even know if the company is even getting in trouble, but it's Houston-based Castellano 03 Trucking LLC, citing records from the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration Global Trade Magazine reported in 2019 that 30 violations were reported out of 19 inspections over the course of 2 years, some of which were related to brakes. Oh, just 30 violations. Oh, Castellano Trucking just had 30 violations in the course of the last 2 years, and some of them had to do with brakes, so this shit might happen again. It might happen again, so we didn't go after the corporation and we didn't make the company feel the pain. But the poor immigrant that was trying to feed his family, we're going to fucking... Jesus Christ, it's like the Hatfield and McCoys. The only person that, the damn court system actually went after was the person that had the least amount of mental faculty. So the lawyered systemite class, bunch of parasites... These systemite motherfuckers are parasites. They stand on the necks and the hex. The necks and the hex. They stand on our necks and our heads. They stand on the necks and the heads of the citizens. They exploit us like the blood-sucking vampires that they are. Is there any wonder why Americans have no faith in our institutions. Look at what our institutions are doing. For a poor Cuban immigrant who made a mistake, 110 years. For Kraig Brownlow that intentionally murdered a man but happened to be a cop, no charges whatsoever. There is James Marshall. He shoots a guy in the head. There's a protester. The truck runs, into him like they're going to do something. He goes aside, shoots the guy in the head. Guess what? Not a crime of violence. Vehicular manslaughter, not a crime of violence. So vehicular manslaughter, running a person over, not a crime of violence. Shooting a person in the head, not a crime of violence. And he wound up pleading guilty to tampering with a corpse. And the man was alive. So what a clusterfuck that was. Mandatory minimums need to stop, definitely. Prosecutors charging people with 50,000 charges need to stop, too. The systemite class need to stop, exploiting the working class people and stop being the blood-sucking vampires that they are. Motherfuckers. Jesus Christ. They're getting all the tax dollars just to turn around and fuck us over. How much longer can the system continue to fuck the people over while enriching themselves before it all turns sideways? You know what Rogel wasn't doing? He didn't shoot anybody in the head. He didn't run anybody. Well, the vehicular manslaughter, but that's not a crime of violence. He was delivering lumber. He didn't go out and intentionally kill 100 people. He didn't go out and stab 100 people. He didn't go out and pull James Holmes. Kraig Brownlow, he thought that the hero of the neighborhood, the hero that just saved the day, the hero that just shot and killed the active gunman that was killing innocent people, Kraig Brownlow thought that the good Samaritan of Arvada was the devil. He thought the angel was the devil, and therefore he murdered the angel. And Alexis King says, well, we got to look at his perception. If he thought that the devil, if he thought the angel was a devil, then, what can you do? We got to look at his perspective. Then we need to look at Rogel's perspective. He's doing this job. He's doing this work. His fucking truck is manufacturing. He's trying to do his best. What's he supposed to do? Right? He could have drove off this ramp. He could have drove over this way. He could have drove any other way. Motherfucker, he's trying to pull this, do this. He's barreling down the fucking thing. The brakes ain't fucking working. He knows he's going to hit a fucking mountain or shit. He don't know what the fuck. Jesus Christ, I'm sure you guys would have been calm, collected, and made all the right decisions. You probably would have just jumped a ramp and then landed on top of a mesa and just on pillows, right? Johnny Hurley did Kraig Brownlow's job without any pay, without any of the perks, without any of the power. Just because it was the right thing to do. You can't expect the system to do something like that. And that's probably why they killed Johnny Hurley. Kraig Brownlow was like, you son of a bitch, you're going to take my job? He was jealous because he actually was the hero. Kraig Brownlow couldn't handle that somebody else. So Alexis King, you think she would have done shit about the active gunman? No, Johnny Hurley stepped up. Did what was right because it was the right thing to do. Alexis King, however, she identifies with the murderer in that case. In that case, she protects the person that intentionally murdered. That's not negligent homicide. It's not vehicular homicide. That's homicide in the first degree. That's, class 1 felony. That's class 2 felony. That's that's the big murder charges. But for Kraig Brownlow, Alexis King is going to bury that case and then cover up the murders and then get this Rogel for manslaughter. She also pursued 42 charges against him. Rogel didn't mean to hurt anybody, but Kraig Brownlow, he did it. It was intentional. It was deliberate. He meant to murder Johnny Hurley. He aimed at Johnny Hurley, he intended to kill Johnny Hurley. Johnny Hurley is dead. But Rogel, he didn't mean to hurt anybody, so you could say, well, the effects are the same. And there is some argument to be said about that, but 5 years in jail, 1, 2, 3, maybe 5 years, 110? And you know what else is, we didn't pay for it. We didn't pay for Rogel's accident. We paid for Kraig Brownlow. Kraig Brownlow, we pay him. We give him a weekly salary. We give him money on top of money, make sure he's got all the health care and everything that he needs, gas and food, make sure he's taken care of through and through. So Rogel's accident wasn't deliberate. Kraig Brownlow was deliberate, and we pay for Kraig Brownlow. And as a society, we pay for it even bigger because where the fuck is the justice in any of this shit? Does the criminal justice system in Colorado give a goddamn flying fuck about truth or justice or peace or tranquility or any of the bullshit that they claim to give a shit about? So prosecutors sought the minimum penalties for each one of the charges, right? The highest of which is 10 years. Was that for the assault charge? What the fuck is wrong with that jury, too? Later on, the jurors are going to say they didn't know that he would get a 110-year prison sentence, but you charged him, you convicted him of 27 crimes of 42, which means he got out of 15. 15 charges were dropped. Nobody ever mentions that the 15 charges were dropped. But what the fuck was that jury? You convicted him of 27 charges and you're going to act shocked that he got 110 years? You convict him of 27 charges, you pieces of shit. I like the juries that know their fucking power and they say, you know what, we're just going to charge him with this crime right here and it's going to be for 5 years and we're going to kick the judge off this. No, the judge has no power. We're going to say this is the sentence, this is the charge, and if the judge has got a problem with it, well then we got a problem with him. We're going to have a hung jury or some shit. 42, all that paperwork, all that effort, just like on Julian Assange, just so much wasted effort. But they want to feel good about it. They want to have a break. You know, have a, what was that break? A trophy. They needed to take the break of Rogel's truck and use it as a trophy. Oh, you said that the brake broke, huh? This brake right here, we got the brake. How about this? You want a trophy with the brake? Throwing Rogel in jail for 110 years doesn't make my neighborhood safer. There's criminal citizens, there's criminal cops, criminal judges, criminal prosecutors. Kraig Brownlow is still running around. He killed a man that saved he wasn't just an innocent man, he was a hero. He was a good Samaritan of Arvada. So, yeah, we need to go after the people that are injuring people, intentionally. This was an accident, and I think I could forgive him, but, Colorado definitely, the judicial system is fucked. We got a lot of things that we need to fix in Colorado. We definitely need to fix the mandatory minimum laws. We need a constitutional convention. We got 20,000 plus laws on the book. Our Constitution is over 200 pages long. We need a simplified law. The whole point of having a short Constitution is so that way even the laymen can understand what the hell is going on. Colorado needs to fix her sham judge retention elections. Colorado needs to maintain the same standards for everybody. Kraig Brownlow running around scot-free. Didn't even get a ticket. Didn't even get a charge. And then Rogel, right? He got the entire criminal justice system. He got the works, didn't he? Judges don't seem to think that our constitutional freedoms are law. It's in the Constitution, motherfucker. How the fuck is cruel and unusual punishments not in the Constitution? It's both in Colorado and US Constitution, motherfucker. Let juries impose sentences that they believe to be fair. Limit charges to a reasonable amount. Game theory says that with 42 charges, that's stacking the deck. That's cheating. Even if he got 41 charges knocked down, well, he was guilty of disorderly conduct. Yeah, because the damn jury wanted to say, all right, system, we'll give you something. We'll give you the smallest thing out there. Rogel, he says, I am not a murderer. I am not a killer. When I look at my charges, we are talking about a murderer, which is not me. I've never thought about hurting anybody in my entire life. That's the guy. We're going to ruin that guy's life. He loved America so much, ran away from Cuba, comes up here looking for the good life. Got a job, right? So he's not going around robbing and raping and stealing like a lot of these white motherfuckers. He got a job, and he fucked up, and he made a mistake. And people died, and he needs to pay for that. But Kim Kardashian and 5 million people are correct. 110 years, that's just too goddamn much. It's too fucking much.